One of the buzzwords that you hear a lot in our industry is financial planning. And the hard part is so many people use it. And, there are people that will use the term financial planning, and really what they're talking about is selling you insurance. There are people that talk about financial planning, and what they're trying to do is get you to invest money with them. And in all reality, financial planning is a completely, different beast in and of itself. One of the documents that we'll share with people when they come into the office is kind of what people think financial planning is versus what it actually is. And, just recently, one of my coworkers, Ryan Ovenden, and I went through the CFP program, and what we learned through that is there's actually an official 7-step process that goes into this whole idea of financial planning, and it gets to be really intricate. So we thought it'd be kind of neat to kind of challenge some of the buzzword that's out there and actually begin to do some educational pieces on what actually are those 7 steps to the financial planning process. So what we're going to do today is talk through the first 3. So number 1 is understanding a client's personal and financial circumstances. And really inside that, what it comes down to is knowing who you are. We'll dive into the quantitative and the qualitative. The quantitative data that really we're looking at is some of those typical questions you're going to get anywhere. It's what's your age, account values, different things like that. The stuff that we can measure, with a number. The qualitative that we're going to dive into as well, which even I would say, I feel like a lot of times is even more important, dives into the values and more of that, how's the health and what's family history of health, and what are the values that you guys have as a family, and how do we help plan around those things. So ultimately that first meeting, that first step in the process is just getting a really solid understanding of who you are and where you're starting from. Number 2 in the process is actually identifying and selecting goals that are specific to you guys as an individual or as a family. And ultimately what that comes down to is everybody's different. Not everybody has the same vision for what they want their future to look like. Is somebody looking to retire early? So what does retirement look like for you? That's really one of the typical ones that we would sit and talk with people through. But other ones are college education. Is it a passion of yours to send your kids to college and get them through their debt free? What does that look like, and what's that going to take to do that? Providing a lake home for your family, and wanting to do it debt free. Can we do that? How do we plan for that? What does that look like? All those different goals that you would have for you and your family are things that we want to talk to, and we really want to start to dive into in that second step of the process. The third step in the process really is where we get into the analytical side of things, of really starting to analyze where you're at in the process, what course that's kind of setting you on, what path that's setting you on, and trying to identify if there's any potential alternative courses of action that we need to take. So as we look at kind of understanding where you are at in your journey and some of those details about you, then we spend time talking through those goals that you have. This third step is really where we start to say, hey, are we on track to accomplish those goals, or are we not? And if we're not, what are some of those small pivots that we can make in order to set ourselves on a better path to try to accomplish those goals? And one of the things we'll say often is, if what you thought to be true turned out not to be, when would you want to know? This step is where we start to figure that out. It's where we start to say, hey, that's not necessarily reality. But if we want to make that reality, here are a few things that we can do to make that change. It's the whole idea of if I'm driving and I see something off in the distance that I don't want to hit, if I see it in the distance, I can make some small course corrections and try to avoid a problem. But if all of a sudden it shows up right in front of me, we got to make a significant correction to try to avoid any potential problems. So the whole idea of identifying the goals and then figuring out where you're at is trying to figure out far enough in advance where there may be issues so that we can do little course corrections as opposed to having to make huge course corrections somewhere down the line. So those are the first 3 steps of the 7-step financial planning process. There's 4 more, so stay tuned. We'll have more coming your way shortly.